I'm still sitting here at the start of the day. I'm about to kick into meetings, and I'm just like, all I want to do is punish this person, punish this individual with words, with attacking. What is this going to serve? My mother always said to me growing up, she said, if you want to get on in life, kill them with kindness and charm them to death. All right, welcome back to the Better Human Podcast. We're going to do a little bit of a rant today, talking about how difficult it is to actually operate with emotional management, not even emotional intelligence, emotional management. I teach emotional intelligence, and we try to keep it as simple as possible, really around, two components when it comes down to emotional management. One, the ability to pause, which is so hard for us to do because as people, we are reactive and we're fight and flight, and we're vindictive, and we're just, not the best when it comes down to stuff. And then the actual framework that sits behind that. But I think the success in this is our ability to pause. So quick story. I live in this development in Costa Rica, beautiful development. And like any development, there's an HOA, and in the HOA, there's a bunch of negative Nellies, just assholes, people that just want to gripe and find fault and attack at everything and anything. There has been a switch in the HOA group in regard to a general manager. So the current guy that's running it is also the developer, which this is where, people have had an issue with him as well. Not just because they think it's a conflict of interest, but he's not the easiest guy to get along with. Either or, I tend to look at people, or I tend to try to look beyond sometimes the surface and look at the intention. And I believe the guy's actually done a really good job. And he's had an uphill battle when it comes down to some of these individuals. So fast forward this, they end up sending out an email saying, hi, by the way, there's a new general manager. Shitty email, by the way. If I was to give them any advice, like communication and, how they could have PR'd, that would have been way better. But they send out this email saying, hi, there's a new general manager and he's starting on August 4th, et cetera, et cetera. And now this sort of blows up on Facebook, right? All the rumors around sort of how the one guy's out and the new guy's coming in. And I happen to have a very close relationship with the developer along with the community here, and always feel that it's my responsibility to clarify communication or to set the record straight, for a lack of a better term. The other side of this is I've grown up in life always fighting the bully. At the end of the day, if you were a bully, I had no problem getting in an altercation and a fight with you. In fact, I grew up fighting. And anytime I got in a physical fight when I was younger, always had to do with either defending someone or standing up to a bully. And I look at this very small group of idiots that live here that just want to gripe and continue rumors and, create noise and all this kind of bullshit. So I decide to reply to one of the posts, which simply said, hey, by the way, we got to be careful of rumors. This is actually not the fact. This is the fact. And I also know that there's going to be a series of communications coming out over the next couple of weeks, creating clarity and transparency for the community. And this one guy replies to me, and he's, because I used the word owner instead of developer. And he replies to that comment, which is, I thought we were the owners and not this guy, which I then corrected and said, yes, I've updated the post to say developer, not owner. And then this other idiot, this Karen. And by the way, all right, some of you might not like this word. All right. We used to call Karens cunts. And by definition, she is a fucking cunt. And I almost responded to that. I almost sent her a private message saying, the reason I actually happen to have this inside track, let's say, or maybe inside information, is because I tend to be a nice guy. I tend to put in efforts to build rapport and relationship, right? Back to the whole concept of emotional management, right? Being able to pause that instinctive, unconscious, fucked up side to our personalities, like work hard to manage that, be nice. For me, it's very easy for me to be an asshole, right? Like I've got that wicked, aggressive side to my personality where I'm just happy to fight and be a dick and get into it with people and stuff like this. And she responds again with this post around, something along the lines of, it would be nice that if we all got this information the same way you did. And again, as I'm about to fire this message to her, where I'm like, again, you're just a fucking Karen. And the reason you probably don't get communicated to is because of your attitude, because of your approach, because of your behavior, because you're just a fucking asshole to deal with, right? I'm going to stop. Let me just pause. And it's such a simple concept to be able to pause the action, pause the response, the reaction, pause what's about to fly out of your mouth, which logically my intelligent brain is going, Greg, don't do it. Greg, don't do it. Greg, don't do it. But like this sort of cave brain of mine, this Neanderthal that we all have in our personality is just like, get her back, just fire this message and just attack. And I didn't, the point of it all, but I'm sitting here and I'm still carrying this. I'm still sitting here at the start of the day. I'm about to kick into meetings and I'm just like, all I want to do is punish this person, punish this individual with words, with attacking, call them out. And at the end of the day, right, what is this going to serve? You know, my mother always said to me growing up, she said, you know, if you want to get on in life, kill them with kindness and charm them to death. You know, and again, just another simple concept when it comes down to getting along in the world. And we're in this world right now that you look left, you look right, everyone is fighting. Everyone is in war and conflict. There's crazy things going on in the corporate world. We've just had this whole scenario with the CEO of Astronomer and the HR chick, which I was chatting with a friend yesterday, and the simplest thing they could have done was just not move, not done anything. But like in that fight or flight response, like they jolted and stuff. Now, what's also come out in that is that was totally set up and it was premeditative when it came down to catching them. But the success in life, my belief, is if you can slow down enough, if you can shut up long enough, if you can stop what you're about to do, what you're about to say, and give yourself enough space, you just might be able to get along. You just might be able to be more successful. You know, there's a famous old saying, which I'm going to butcher, which is there is a space between what comes out of their mouth and what comes out of yours. And if you can hold that space long enough, you just might put yourself in a position to have a little more choice versus operate as that unconscious self. Anyway, just a quick reminder to say at the end of the day, one of the things we have to practice when it comes down to emotional management isn't this big concept in theory. It is your ability to shut the fuck up, to pause the instinctive reaction and response, to slow down enough to give yourself enough choice.